Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Today we're recording chapter 5 about vulnerability. And let's talk about how, for many people, vulnerability is associated with weakness. Though logically, by our logic at least, yours and mine, it should actually be a strength. Can you explain that?
Yes. When we met today, I also asked my kids and my husband what vulnerability means to them. And I realized we perceive this word quite differently. Probably also because the word vulnerability in English, it sounds like vulnerability. So it's like it's softer than it sounds in Russian. That's also some kind of feature, I guess, that needs to be considered. In general, why they perceive it as something negative. Because even in video games, there's this thing where it says like a hero's vulnerability. So, for example, you're a hero and let's say you have some armor, abilities, all sorts of cool stuff. And every hero definitely has some kind of vulnerability. That's why they perceive it. Well, accordingly, as something bad, as some kind of weakness. So when I asked what vulnerability is, they told me it's a weak spot.
Okay, and in your opinion, what is vulnerability?
To me, vulnerability is openness to the world, to yourself, to the world, to people. Overall, it's about openness.
Okay, and do men and women experience vulnerability differently based on your conversations with your clients?
I think most often vulnerability is seen as a kind of weakness or fear.
Fear of what?
For example, they say that, let's say, it varies. For instance, some have a fear for their children. And they might, for example, run an Instagram account but hide their child as much as possible. Because they feel that if someone finds out who their child is or something, then something might happen to them.
I've realized that for us, vulnerability is linked to the phrase vulnerable spot.
Yes.
Though essentially what you and I actually mean when we talk about vulnerability really has nothing to do with that.
Yes, it has nothing to do with it because we look at it, I think, from the perspective of seeing in it, on the contrary, an opportunity for growth.
Okay, and how can this growth manifest? Let's put it that way.
This growth can manifest in that, for example, first of all, where there is fear, there are certain illusions. Or it's a layering, so to speak, of some repeating patterns within the family lineage. For instance, if all the men died, there's a certain fear there, and there's already a program embedded in you that this is how it might be. But then again, every program has an anti-program. And vulnerability is precisely when you go into this anti-program and you're ready to just remove everything that's been layered on, to strip away that layer and see what lies beyond vulnerability.
Okay, let's explain what vulnerability brings in relations with other people. And who can you be vulnerable with and who should you not be? Because I'm sure that what we're saying, being open to the world and ready to perceive things, to accept, to communicate openly with someone, clearly implies, well, it's foolish to be open to everyone because there are many people, well, maybe not many, but nevertheless, there are people who want to take advantage of your openness. So how should one act in these situations?
I think that, first of all, a person is ready to look at their vulnerability and be open only when they have self-worth and clearly defined boundaries. Then yes, you're not afraid to be open. But if you have no boundaries and no self-worth, then you'll most likely be closed off. Because in reality, we're only open when there's this inner confidence that whatever I do, whatever happens, it's all for the best. And I can give an example, like for instance, in the previous video, I talked about how we had a wild night out, that whole story. What's the point? The point is that even if tomorrow someone might judge me or maybe spread it further, it doesn't matter how. If I don't have internal worth and I worry about it, then yes, it'll come back like a boomerang to me. But if I'm at peace inside, truly at peace, then I've just let it go. And I'm open to the fact that, okay, I said it. Yes, I said it. And I accept it.
But you've mentioned an important point here that one can be vulnerable when they have boundaries and established internal values. But what about people? Because let's be honest, very few people actually have that. But it would be good for everyone to move towards openness because it simply builds different kinds of relationships. And so how do you balance when you don't have clear boundaries yet and your values aren't fully established, but you want to be open? And for example, you likely already have some experience, which is probably why you're not open now, because something happened to you in the past, why you closed off, and now you're afraid of getting burned again, afraid of being hurt again. And this is a different situation. How in such, I think most people are in this situation after all. How should they act?
In any case, you'll have to try. There's no magic pill, honestly. In any case, you'll have to try. In general, what is vulnerability about? It's about not being afraid to show your true self. And when you value your true self, you don't care what happens next. But as long as you're focused on the fact that some actions are right or wrong, as long as you're focused on how you were raised, as long as you're focused on what colleagues, society, your friends say, that tisk, 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 this is good and this is not good. Well, why did you wear red? You're expressing yourself way too much here, attracting all this attention to yourself. And, well, there's a bunch of stereotypes and beliefs that actually constrain you. And at some point, well, you kind of stop being yourself. And vulnerability and openness are exactly about being ready to be who you are. Without any, that is, let's say you have a set of your own beliefs, and if they don't align with other people's beliefs, you don't care about that. You just threw people, yes, here we didn't align, we parted ways. The first few times it will be very painful because on some points you seem to align, but it turns out no, you didn't and you parted ways. Then you find some other people, I don't know, maybe it will be a man, maybe it will be new friends. Then you're like, oh, great, great, here we are. Yes, we understand each other. We seem to merge again. And then at some point you realize that what's normal for you isn't normal for them, and you parted ways. And there will be such moments exactly until the point when boundaries are drawn inside you through these interactions, and you realize, I don't want, I don't want, I want. And yes, I'm ready to be friends with people like this. I don't know, be in a relationship with a man like that, and that's what resonates, and you don't try to adapt to others.
Okay, so you basically said that vulnerability manifests in relationships. So roughly speaking, you can only show vulnerability when you're interacting with someone. Or not?
Well, I guess I've also been looking at the word vulnerability from different angles today. It's like, there's also an understanding from the perspective of, say, war, that you can exploit your enemy's vulnerability and tactically know, well, where to position your battalion and how to move in to win. That's one side of it. But if we look at it from a woman's perspective, I think all women can only realize how vulnerable they are through relationships. Because, yeah, when we enter some, let's say new social circle or any new place, we, in any case, at first, you don't show your full range right away. You still try to get a feel for it and understand what the atmosphere is like. Like a hockey player, yeah.
I understand what you're saying because that's how I am. I need to look around first. But I know people who can just barge right in and they are just who they are. To be honest, I admire them. But so far, I don't belong to that group. But yeah, for me, I'd rather show this vulnerability, first of all, bit by bit, and in places where I feel more or less safe.
Yes. Well, I think it's just a human reflex, basically, that you test the waters first and then you start to open up. There are those, who barge in, not many, but they exist. But I think it's just those people who have so much inside that they just can't hold it back. And okay, let them not hold back. It's wonderful. Everyone is different.
Okay, I want to go back and discuss with you. We recently posted a TED Talk, which is one of the most popular ones, specifically on the topic of vulnerability. It was a study by Brené Brown. It has 70 million views. First of all, the topic. Why did this topic resonate so much, so to speak? It really took off, and there were some very interesting conclusions. Brené Brown said that vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, and creativity. Do you agree with that? And how do you view this statement?
I absolutely agree. I'm all for it. When exactly, I'm probably repeating myself with this example, but it's probably the most pivotal moment in my life when in 20, I don't remember, 20 or 21, for the first time in my life, I very honestly told my husband about what was going on inside me. I clearly, distinctly understood that this had nothing to do with him or, I don't know, the kids or anyone else. It only concerns me. I couldn't understand why it hurt so much. And that was, let's say, my greatest vulnerability. And when I just dove into that, that's exactly when everything else started to unfold. Yes, I call it honesty. I call it the meaning of love. I call it, in general, like everything, because in my experience, it was just that global. Right at the moment when I confessed to him very honestly, it was as if, we, like with our bodies, truly connected, whereas all that time it was as if there was some kind of layer between us. And it was like we were close, but there was always something there between us. And at that moment, it was as if what was between us started to vanish and true intimacy appeared. But it appeared precisely through vulnerability. In the same way, at some point, he in turn began to open up and speak about what constitutes vulnerability for him. And at some point, we realized that these very honest conversations, I don't know, just like that. And the problem vanishes. You just honestly, openly say what hurts inside you or what worries you or where you feel ashamed or if you have a fear or, well, I don't know, all those kinds of descriptions. Then the moment you say them out loud, they just seem to evaporate.